Writing. The first time I asked my CEO to dinner, I expected to lose my job. Instead, I almost lost my heart. Her smile was calm, almost impossible to read, as the entire office buzzed around us preparing for another exhausting week. I had already convinced myself she would politely refuse, maybe even laugh at the ridiculous idea of a junior employee inviting the company's powerful CEO to dinner. But then she looked directly into my eyes and quietly said, "Okay, but only if it's a date." In that single moment, everything I thought I knew about life, success, and impossible dreams began to change forever. Before we continue, if you believe kindness deserves another chance and that ordinary people can create extraordinary moments, please take a second to like this video, leave a comment telling us where you're watching from, share this story with someone who believes in hope, and subscribe to the channel so you never miss another emotional journey. 3 months earlier, my life looked nothing like the moment that would eventually change it. I was 29 years old, working as a financial analyst at one of the fastest-growing technology companies in the city. The salary paid my bills, but only barely. Every month I sent part of my paycheck to my widowed mother, whose health had slowly declined after years of working 2 jobs to raise me. My apartment was small enough that the kitchen and living room practically shared the same space, and every piece of furniture had been bought second-hand. Still, I was grateful because everything I owned had been earned honestly. The company's CEO, Evelyn Brooks, had a reputation that intimidated everyone. She was brilliant, disciplined, and almost impossible to impress. Employees admired her achievements but rarely knew anything about her personal life. She arrived early, left late, remembered names, and somehow noticed details no one else did. To me, she represented everything success looked like, yet there was something quietly lonely about her whenever she walked through the office halls after everyone else had gone home. One rainy evening I stayed late finishing reports that needed to be ready before sunrise. As I walked toward the elevators, I noticed the lights still glowing inside the executive conference room. Through the glass walls I saw Evelyn sitting completely alone, staring at the city skyline instead of the presentation on her laptop. She looked less like a fearless executive and more like someone carrying a weight no promotion could remove. She didn't notice me, and I kept walking, but that image stayed with me for days. My mother always believed loneliness could hide behind expensive clothes just as easily as behind worn-out jackets. She often reminded me that successful people still needed someone to ask how they were really doing. Those words echoed in my mind every time I saw Evelyn quietly eating lunch alone while everyone assumed she preferred it that way. A week later the company celebrated another record-breaking quarter. Everyone congratulated Evelyn for leading the business to new heights, but after the applause ended, she slipped away before the party truly began. I watched her disappear down the hallway with the same distant expression I had seen that rainy evening. That was when an idea, completely unreasonable and almost embarrassing, entered my mind. The following Friday I found myself standing outside her office holding paperwork that barely required a signature. My heart pounded harder than it ever had during any presentation. Before fear convinced me to walk away, I thanked her for believing in young employees and nervously admitted that I had noticed she seemed to spend a lot of evenings alone. I told her my mother had taught me that everyone deserved a home-cooked meal now and then, and I invited her to dinner, already expecting rejection. Instead, she smiled with genuine warmth and accepted with one condition. She wanted it to be a real date. For several seconds I couldn't even answer. My mind searched for hidden cameras or some elaborate joke, but there was nothing except her quiet sincerity. She explained that everyone treated her like a title instead of a person. Nobody invited Evelyn to dinner. They invited the CEO. My invitation had felt different because it carried no business proposal, no hidden agenda, and no expectation beyond sharing a meal. The entire weekend became a whirlwind of nervous preparation. My apartment suddenly seemed impossibly small. I borrowed extra chairs from my neighbor, polished every dish until it reflected the kitchen lights, and spent hours cooking recipes my mother had taught me. She laughed over the phone when I confessed who was coming for dinner. Instead of warning me about the risks, she simply reminded me that respect mattered more than perfection. When Evelyn arrived, she wore simple clothes instead of expensive executive fashion. She carried homemade bread from a neighborhood bakery rather than an extravagant gift. Within minutes the intimidating CEO disappeared, replaced by a woman who laughed easily, complimented my mother's recipes, and admitted she hadn't shared a home-cooked dinner with anyone in almost 4 years. The evening passed with stories instead of business conversations. She told me about growing up in a struggling family, earning scholarships, sacrificing relationships while climbing the corporate ladder, and eventually discovering that success often became a lonely mountain. I shared memories of helping my mother pay bills, studying late into the night, and believing hard work could overcome almost anything. By the time dessert was finished, it felt as though two ordinary people had met instead of an executive and an employee. The weeks that followed became unexpectedly complicated. Office gossip spread faster than facts. Some coworkers assumed I was chasing promotions. Others whispered that Evelyn had lost her professional judgment. Every glance in the hallway carried silent questions. Those rumors hurt more than I expected because neither of us had done anything dishonest. Eventually Evelyn called me into her office, not as my date but as the company's leader. She explained that the board had already noticed the rumors and that our relationship could create conflicts of interest. Before either of us could move forward personally, one of us would need to step away professionally. That night I barely slept. The company represented years of effort, financial stability, and the career I had dreamed about. Walking away felt terrifying. Yet I also knew I never wanted Evelyn to choose between her reputation and her happiness because of me. The next morning I submitted my resignation. Everyone assumed I had been forced out, but the truth remained private. Evelyn accepted my decision with tears she tried unsuccessfully to hide. She promised that whatever happened next would never erase her gratitude for my courage. The months afterward were difficult. I worked freelance consulting jobs while searching for something permanent. Money became tight again, and there were evenings when I questioned whether love had been worth sacrificing security. Yet every challenge felt lighter because I wasn't facing it alone. Evelyn stood beside me through every setback, encouraging me just as faithfully as I had once encouraged her with a simple dinner invitation. Slowly life rewarded our faith. Together we started a small consulting firm focused on helping struggling family businesses modernize without losing their values. Instead of chasing billion-dollar headlines, we celebrated every local shop we helped survive. Every grateful handshake reminded us that success measured by lives changed felt richer than success measured only by profits. One afternoon we visited my mother, who smiled the moment she saw us cooking together in her kitchen. She quietly whispered that true wealth wasn't finding someone perfect. It was finding someone willing to sit at your small table before you had anything impressive to offer. Years later, people often asked how our story began. They expected dramatic romance or glamorous business events. Instead, they always looked surprised when we admitted it started with an invitation that was never supposed to be accepted. One ordinary act of kindness had reached someone hidden behind an extraordinary title. Before we reach the ending, we'd love to hear from you. Please leave a comment with the words, "Kindness changes lives," if you believe one simple act can completely rewrite someone's future. Looking back, I realized the greatest risk I ever took wasn't inviting my CEO to dinner. It was choosing courage over fear when every logical reason told me to stay silent. Sometimes life changes not because of perfect timing or incredible luck, but because one person decides to treat another human being with honesty instead of assumptions. Behind every impressive title is a heart that still hopes to be understood, appreciated, and loved for who they truly are. If this story touched your heart even a little, please like this video, share it with someone who needs hope today, leave your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe to the channel. Your support helps us continue sharing stories that remind the world kindness, second chances, and genuine human connection can still change lives. And perhaps somewhere, someone will find the courage to ask a question they never thought would receive a beautiful answer. If you'd like, I can also create the matching YouTube description, hashtags, search tags, disclaimer, and click-worthy thumbnail title for this story.